employment tribunal has found that a senior lawyer telling a legal secretary that she looked nice created an intimidating environment and made her feel violated.
Well, she's won her sexual harassment suit, so is saying someone looks nice acceptable in the workplace anymore?
Well, joining us now to debate this is political commentator Christine Hamilton, who thinks it should be, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid, who thinks making comments like these are unnecessary. OK, Rebecca, why is it unnecessary to tell your colleague they look nice?
Well, how somebody looks at work shouldn't be particularly important or relevant, but I think my issue here is that it's used as a sort of dismissive way to make women feel silly for complaining about things. Like, oh, it's just saying you look nice, why does it matter? But we all know there are different ways of saying things, and if you are an older man in a position of power, looking a woman up and down and saying, oh, you look nice, in a lascivious tone, which, as far as we know, is quite possibly what happened, that's not acceptable, that's not workplace appropriate, and it would make somebody feel uncomfortable.
Christine, she's right, Rebecca, isn't she? It depends how it's said. If you've got someone who's sleazy saying, oh, you look nice, you're going to be a bit off-put, aren't you?
Yes, we don't know whether this was said in a lascivious tone or not, and as far as I can see this particular case, the boss went too far and he did a lot of other things as well. But what worries me is that the tribunal has ruled that just saying you look nice could be included as sexual harassment. Now, I think that is ridiculous. If it's part of a pattern of a lot of other things, then it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think to have it included by the tribunal and saying this is sexual harassment, I think is wrong, and I think its work isn't gone completely mad.
Rebecca Reid, is this a problem here, that including this as one of the strikes against this guy who seemingly did other things as well, perhaps the next person who comes along could use that alone to then launch a tribunal? Are we at the thin end of a wedge here?
No, I don't think we are. Very often when I come in on Wednesday night to do Patrick's show at GBN, I will say to one of my friends who is a producer that, oh my God, you look amazing. I love that outfit. I love your shoes, whatever. I do that most weeks because she always looks great. There is not a world in which I'm going to get a letter next week saying that I've been sexually harassing her, because I'm not. And the problem is we often talk about hypotheticals when women are trying to assert themselves when they have been sexually harassed, as this woman has. But realistically, women don't make these accusations for fun. Women don't make these accusations to be difficult. They do it because they've been made to feel unsafe or unable to work in a certain place. And we have to deal with the reality of what women tend to do, not the hypotheticals of what they could do in the future.
I just worry, Christine, that it can create an atmosphere whereby men are worried about saying anything. I mean, I've been complimented on my skirt before by a male colleague, not here, elsewhere, and he immediately said, oh, I shouldn't have said that. It was a lovely skirt.
And I bet you look fabulous in it, but I probably shouldn't say that either. I think if you take it out of the work context, if you go to the real world, how young men ever advance any sort of relationship with a young woman, I have no idea nowadays, because they're not allowed to look at her, they're not allowed to say she looks nice, they're not allowed to do anything. And I just don't know how it is of making any sort of advance to a young woman. And the days when, you know, if somebody gave you a compliment, you just accepted it. If you look nice, you look nice. Thank you very much. I love it when people compliment me. Wish my husband did it a bit more often. I'm saying that this particular example, he does sound that he was rather creepy, frankly, this fellow, and it was a very unequal power balance. So the combination of everything was probably not nice at all. But I do worry about the general situation when normal people just going about their social lives, the young men are terrified of putting a foot wrong and being accused of goodness knows what and where that might end.
Is there a risk here that some, frankly, obscene actions from a small group of men sort of make other young men feel that they just don't know what they can do and what they can't do and whether they should be talking to women at all, frankly, and it makes everything perhaps very awkward because so many cues and sort of flirtatious things are not spoken. They're sort of... It's very hard to sort of make a formula for relationships.
I'm not
sure. Sorry,
Rebecca,
I
go ahead.
wasn't sure who you were addressing that to. Yes, Rebecca.
I don't think that that's a real world problem. I mean, when I was most recently dating, I was being sent obscene images of men's genitals most
Gosh.
days. There was not an issue with men being backwards and coming forwards.
Oh, but if it's the men who send their genitals who feel like they won't, no matter what the social norms and cues are, they're going to do that. It's the people who perhaps aren't even talking to you who are scared off by those people.
These were not these were normal men, and B, this was dozens and dozens and dozens of men. So yes, I do think there is an issue in the social contract, but a lot of it is not men being too backwards, it's men being too emboldened behind screens and not emboldened enough perhaps in real life. But I refuse to believe that your average man in this country is too silly to know that saying to a woman who's been having a nice chat with, I like your skirt, is different from saying you look nice in a creepy way to their employee. I think most men are good and decent and are perfectly capable of reading that room.
And Christine, is it not a good thing that women feel more empowered in the workplace, that they won't put up with sleazy men?
Of course it is, and we've come a long way in the right direction as far as all that's concerned. I do think Rebecca describes as normal dozens of men who send pictures of their genitals to somebody they're meeting on a dating app. I would regard that as normal. It's a long time since I've been dating, probably 50 years, but it's normal behaviour. I find it extraordinary. Give me normal behaviour, which is a little bit more reticence, please.
I completely agree.
Well, we can agree with that. Thank you both for that debate, Rebecca Reed and, of course, Christine Hamilton. Great to speak to you both.